I couldn't believe what I was seeing. One second I was helping my 12-year-old son Jake adjust his wheelchair and the next, some woman was shrieking like we had just committed a crime. That's not your spot. You're obviously not disabled. I turned around, completely confused, only to find a middle-aged woman with an over-the-top hairstyle and a permanent scowl standing just a few feet away. Her arms were crossed, her manicured nails clicking against her phone screen as if she was already dialing 911. Jake, my sweet boy who had been excited just moments ago to test out his brand-new wheelchair, shrank back. His muscles were weak from his condition and standing for too long exhausted him. The wheelchair was a necessity, not a prop. But this woman, this Karen, looked at us like we were scammers trying to steal a handicapped parking spot. "Excuse me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. "I said you can't park there," she snapped, rolling her eyes. "That's for actual disabled people, not for parents who want to park close for convenience." I blinked. This had to be some kind of joke. My car had a valid handicapped placard hanging from the mirror. Jake was literally sitting in his wheelchair, looking up at her with wide, confused eyes. "My son is disabled," I said firmly, stepping protectively between her and Jake. Karen scoffed. "Oh please. He looks fine. You people are the reason actual disabled folks struggle to find parking." I had dealt with ignorant people before, but this was something else. Jake, ever the optimist, tried to defuse the tension. Ma'am, I actually have a condition. My muscles don't work like other kids, so." "I don't care," she interrupted, waving a dismissive hand. "That's just what kids say when their parents tell them to lie. I've seen this scam before. You just want to take advantage of the system." I felt my blood pressure spike. "Lady, I don't have to justify my son's medical condition to you. Now if you'll excuse us, we'd like to go inside." But Karen wasn't done. In fact, she seemed to get more aggressive. She marched right up to Jake's wheelchair and, unbelievably, grabbed the handles. "If he can walk, he doesn't need this. Kids like him need to toughen up instead of being babied." Jake yelped, his hands gripping the armrests as she tried to jerk the wheelchair forward. That was it. I stepped in, shoving her hands away. "What the hell is wrong with you? Let go of my son's chair." Karen gasped like I had just slapped her. "Did you just assault me?" People were starting to gather. A man with a shopping bag paused mid-step. An older couple frowned, whispering to each other. A teenage girl pulled out her phone, recording. Karen's face twisted as she realized she was losing the argument. But then, like a true villain, she reached into her oversized purse and pulled out a small pink canister. Pepper spray. I barely had time to react before she aimed it at me. "You people always play the victim," she sneered. "Maybe this will teach you a lesson." Before I could shield Jake, she pressed the nozzle. Only, karma had other plans. A gust of wind picked up at the worst possible moment, and instead of hitting me, the spray blew directly back into Karen's face. She shrieked, staggering backward, clawing at her eyes. "Oh my God. My eyes. Help. Help." Jake and I sat there stunned. This woman, who had been so ready to attack us, was now stumbling blindly, tears streaming down her face as she wailed like a banshee. The teenage girl recording burst into laughter. "Oh my God, you just maced yourself." Karen was now on the ground, rolling like a fish out of water. I can't see. I probably should have felt bad. But honestly, I didn't. Not one bit. A mall security guard came running over, followed closely by an actual police officer. The moment Karen saw them, she switched tactics, still gasping dramatically. Officer. This man and his kid attacked me." The officer, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s, raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" Karen pointed wildly in my direction. "Yes. They stole a handicapped spot, they assaulted me, and then they maced me." The officer looked at me. Then at Jake. Then at the group of bystanders, all shaking their heads. The teenage girl helpfully held up her phone. "I got the whole thing on video." The officer sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. "All right, let's see it." The video played. It showed everything. The accusations. The grabbing of Jake's wheelchair. The pepper spray blowing back into Karen's own face. Karen, still half blind, tried to defend herself. But, they were faking. The officer gave her a long, tired look. "Ma'am, do you know what assaulting a disabled child means legally?" Karen paled. The officer turned to Jake. "Are you okay, buddy?" Jake nodded, still looking a little stunned. Yeah. That was crazy. The officer straightened. All right, ma'am. You're under arrest. The crowd let out a collective gasp. Karen shrieked. No. This isn't happening. I did nothing wrong. The officer was already reaching for her cuffs. You assaulted a disabled minor, falsely accused a parent, and caused a public disturbance. Oh, and judging by that recording, you definitely maced yourself. As the officer hauled Karen to her feet, she shrieked again, still rubbing her burning eyes. I have allergies. I can't go to jail. The teenage girl laughed again. Lady, you just committed a felony over a parking spot. Karen struggled, demanding to speak to the mall manager, the police chief, and even the mayor. But it was over. The cuffs clicked shut and she was escorted toward a squad car. I finally let out a breath. Jake, who had been silent for a moment, looked up at me. Did that really just happen? I nodded. Yeah, buddy. It did. He grinned. Best day ever. And for the first time since we arrived, I laughed. Justice had been served. And it was only the beginning. The police officer didn't waste any time hauling Karen toward the squad car, but she wasn't going down without a fight. She flailed, her arms flopping around like a fish on dry land. You can't do this. I was the victim here. That kid, he's a liar. His parents trained him to act disabled for pity points. Her voice cracked as she twisted in the officer's grip, trying to escape. The crowd wasn't having it. People were whispering, some outright laughing. The teenage girl who recorded everything shouted, Lady, you maced yourself, we all saw it. A man with a deep voice chimed in, You attacked a child in a wheelchair. You're lucky no one knocked you out instead of calling the cops. Karen whipped her head around, eyes still red and swollen from her own pepper spray, glaring at everyone like she was royalty being dragged away by peasants. I demand to speak to your superior. This is harassment. My husband is a lawyer and he will sue all of you for defamation. The police officer sighed heavily, like she had heard this 1,000 times before. Ma'am, you assaulted a disabled child, used pepper spray in an unprovoked attack, and falsely reported a crime. You're not in a position to make demands. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a goldfish, but she had no words. The officer guided her toward the police car, and for a moment, it seemed like this ridiculous ordeal was finally coming to an end. But Karen wasn't done. Just as the officer reached for the back door handle, Karen tried one last desperate move. She twisted her body and yanked her arm free from the officer's grip. In a split second she bolted. Except she forgot one crucial thing. Her massive designer purse, which was still hanging off her arm. Her foot caught in the strap and down she went. Face first. The sound was unforgettable. A mix between a dull thud and an undignified squawk. The entire crowd gasped in unison. Karen lay there for a second, sprawled on the pavement like a fallen scarecrow. Then the wailing began. My ankle. I broke my ankle. Someone help me. The officer, who had clearly lost all patience, rubbed her temples before grabbing her radio. Dispatch, we're gonna need an ambulance for the suspect. Possible twisted ankle. Jake, sitting in his wheelchair next to me, whispered, This is better than TV. I was still too stunned to respond. The paramedics arrived a few minutes later, and the chaos only intensified. Karen, now realizing that she might have actually injured herself, had flipped from outraged lunatic to pitiful victim. She clutched at the paramedics dramatically, sobbing. You have to take me to the hospital. I think my spine is misaligned. I might have a concussion. I need a full-body scan, a lawyer, and my personal assistant. One of the paramedics gave the officer a look. She's being dramatic, isn't she? The officer exhaled sharply. Like you wouldn't believe. They got her onto a stretcher, and as they loaded her into the ambulance, Karen, still red-eyed and sniffling, turned to me. You did this to me. You set me up. You'll pay for this, I swear. I couldn't even find the words to respond. Instead, I just waved as they shut the ambulance doors. With Karen out of sight, the crowd started to break up, shaking their heads, laughing and muttering about what they had just witnessed. The officer turned to me, her expression softer now. I'm sorry you and your son had to deal with that. Some people are just, she sighed, entirely too much. I nodded. We appreciate you handling it. Jake, who had been quietly watching everything, finally grinned. I think I deserve ice cream after that. The officer chuckled. Kid, I think you deserve a medal. We left the mall that day thinking we'd never have to deal with Karen again. We were wrong. 2 weeks later we got a call from a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, Karen's lawyer. According to the ridiculous lawsuit filed against us, Karen was claiming emotional distress, wrongful arrest, and defamation. She insisted that she had suffered irreversible trauma and was demanding an apology and a financial settlement. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the phone. She's seriously suing us after all that? The lawyer sighed on the other end. Yeah. I don't think this will go anywhere, but she's determined. You might want to consider getting representation. I wasn't worried. We had the video. We had witnesses. And honestly, I was almost looking forward to seeing Karen humiliate herself in court. The day of the hearing arrived faster than I expected. Jake and I sat in the courtroom waiting for Karen to show up, and when she did, I almost lost it. She rolled in a wheelchair. The exact same model as Jake's. I stared, completely dumbfounded. Karen, who had spent an entire afternoon berating my son for using a wheelchair, was now pretending to be disabled herself. Jake looked at me wide-eyed. She's kidding, right? She was not. Karen's lawyer stood up and delivered the most absurd opening statement I had ever heard. He painted her as a victim, a kind-hearted woman who had simply tried to help a confused child, only to be viciously attacked by an angry parent and an unforgiving society. Karen sniffled dramatically in her wheelchair, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. I just wanted to make sure the boy wasn't being taken advantage of, she whimpered. And what did I get in return? Violence. Hate. Unlawful detainment. I almost choked. Then it was our lawyer's turn. He didn't need to do much. He simply played the video. It took exactly 30 seconds for the judge's expression to shift from neutral to completely unimpressed. He turned to Karen, eyebrows raised. So you maced yourself, attacked a child in a wheelchair, and are now claiming you were the victim? Karen, realizing the judge was not on her side, immediately turned on the waterworks. Your Honor, I have suffered severe emotional damage. I can't even go shopping anymore without feeling like people are staring at me. The judge rubbed his forehead. That's because you went viral online, ma'am. Karen gasped. I what? Her lawyer, looking like he regretted his entire career, leaned over and whispered something to her. Karen frantically pulled out her phone, typing furiously. A moment later, her face turned sheet white. Jake leaned over and whispered to me, I think she just found out about the memes. The judge, clearly done with the nonsense, ruled in our favor in record time. Karen's case was thrown out. Not only that, but she was ordered to pay our legal fees. As we left the courtroom, Jake was grinning ear to ear. So, does this mean we're rich now? I laughed. Not exactly. But it does mean Karen won't be bothering us anymore. Or so we thought. A few months later we ran into her again. But this time the tables had completely turned. Karen, once a proud and entitled woman, was now working mall security. And when we walked past her, Jake couldn't resist. He gave her a big, exaggerated wave and said, Hey, need me to hold the door open for you? Karen scowled. But she said nothing. Because this time she was the one wearing the uniform. Seeing Karen in that mall security uniform was a moment neither Jake nor I would ever forget. The same woman who had screamed at us, attacked my son, and humiliated herself in court was now the one forced to hold the door open for customers. Her expression twisted when she saw us, but she didn't say a word. There was no screaming, no demanding to see a manager, no pointing fingers. Just a woman who had finally been served a dose of reality. Jake, never one to pass up a good moment, couldn't help himself. Hey, nice uniform. You gonna pepper spray any disabled kids today? Karen's face turned a shade of red I didn't even know was possible. She gritted her teeth but still said nothing. I could tell she wanted to snap back, but she had no power here anymore. Not in court, not in public, and certainly not in her new job. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Word had spread quickly after the trial and Karen had lost everything. Her job in real estate, her reputation, and most of her social circle. Nobody wanted to associate with the woman who had gone viral for attacking a disabled child and then making a complete fool of herself in court. Clients dropped her. Her firm fired her. Even her own family distanced themselves. I later found out that her own daughter, the one who had stepped forward during the trial, had publicly denounced her mother's actions. Apparently, their relationship had been rocky for years, And the whole wheelchair incident had been the final straw. Karen's daughter was an ADA lawyer, someone who fought for the rights of disabled people for a living. And here was her own mother doing the exact opposite. Jake and I continued on our way, leaving Karen behind. I didn't expect to ever cross paths with her again, but life had a funny way of making things come full circle. Months passed and Jake's settlement money finally came through. It wasn't anything life-changing, but it was enough to upgrade his wheelchair to a top-of-the-line model, one with custom support, a motorized function, and even some high-tech features that made movement easier for him. He was thrilled. One afternoon we decided to take it for a spin at the park. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and for once, it felt like everything was back to normal. And then I heard a familiar voice. Unbelievable. Even after everything, you people are still milking the system. I turned and there she was. Karen. But she wasn't wearing a uniform this time. She looked disheveled. Her hair wasn't styled to perfection like before, and there were dark circles under her eyes. She wasn't carrying a designer purse or wearing expensive heels. I sighed, already exhausted. Karen, I'm really not in the mood. She crossed her arms. I lost everything because of you. No, I corrected. You lost everything because of yourself. She scoffed, looking at Jake's new wheelchair like it was some kind of personal insult. That thing probably cost thousands. Bet you didn't even have to pay for it. Jake, bless his heart, just smiled. Nope. Thanks to you, Karen. Her eye twitched. I could have left it at that. I could have just walked away and let her stew in her own bitterness. But something about the moment made me pause. She was angry. Not just in the way she had been at the mall or in court. This was different. This was the anger of someone who had finally realized they weren't untouchable anymore. That their actions had real consequences. I exhaled, shaking my head. You know, Karen, you could have just said sorry. She blinked, caught off guard. Back in that parking lot when you saw you were wrong, you could have just walked away. Or apologized. Or literally anything other than what you did. But you doubled down. And then tripled down. And now look at you. For the first time she looked unsure. Like she was realizing just how deep she had buried herself. But instead of admitting it, she scoffed. You just want to rub it in my face. Jake snorted. Well, yeah. A little. I held back a laugh. Karen, you can keep blaming us for your downfall, or you can take a long, hard look in the mirror. That's up to you. But either way, we're done here. And with that, we left her standing there, stewing in her own misery. As we walked away, Jake turned to me. You think she'll ever change? I thought about it for a second. Then I shrugged. Probably not. Jake nodded, satisfied. Good. I like her better like this. I ruffled his hair, laughing. You really are my kid. We spent the rest of the day enjoying the park, Karen forgotten. Because in the end, karma had done its job. She had spent her whole life looking down on others, convinced she was above the rules. But karma doesn't care about entitlement. What was your initial reaction when Karen tried to take Jake's wheelchair? Did you expect her to escalate the situation even further? How did you feel when karma instantly struck Karen with the pepper spray? Did you find it satisfying, funny, or just ironic? If you were in the narrator's shoes, how would you have handled the situation with Karen in the parking lot? Would you have reacted differently? Do you think Karen truly learned her lesson after losing everything, or do you believe she will continue to be entitled? What do you think about Karen using a wheelchair in court after mocking Jake for needing one? Was it desperation, hypocrisy, or something else? What was the most shocking or unexpected moment in the story for you? And sometimes the best revenge is just living your life.